Alright, so this is Quina. I'm doing my final video presentation on my project for 120B, which was my Las Vegas Museum of Art. And I first wanted to say thank you so much for the opportunity to do this video posting. Week 10 was a really crazy week for me and I wasn't able to present in class, so I really appreciate the opportunity. So to get started, as you may recall, I wanted to do an art museum experience in Las Vegas because I've been there several times for business with my mom, and I really just don't like it there very much, and I figured that if there was an art museum there, then I would probably like it there a lot more. But the architecture in Las Vegas is really awesome. Here's a picture of the city center, which is actually directly across from the site that I picked for my building. So getting into the design inspirations, one of my favorite museums is the De Young in San Francisco by Herzog and de Meuron in this picture. And one of my favorite features about it is that you actually walk through this kind of interesting little overhang to get into this central courtyard before you actually go into the museum. So that was kind of an idea that I was really interested in pursuing. And then also I'm really fascinated by the beautiful facades and external textures that Frank Gehry uses in a lot of his work. This is the EMP Museum in Seattle, and I was just really inspired by these beautiful external textures. So something that I really wanted to focus on, my central idea to this project, was that so many of the museums that I've personally been to, the gallery spaces are just kind of static. They just sit there and you just kind of amble through them in no particular order. It's very arbitrary. They're just kind of placed. But I really wanted to focus on this gallery space being a kind of journey, like an experience, where there's a start and an end, and you can go through it as a loop. So naturally, when thinking of the idea of a loop, I pursued a kind of circular shape. So this was my first idea that I came up with in SketchUp. And you can see that it's kind of this looping shape, but I wasn't really sold on this idea, and also, as you can imagine, this is fine for a mass in SketchUp, but then when it comes to modeling a building like this in Revit, it just was Pandora's box, and I just could not, I don't know if anyone could model a building like this in Revit, but if it's possible, they are certainly more qualified than I am. So I kind of switched gears and went back to the drawing board and ended up with this significantly more angular shape. But, you know, I really wanted to focus on these kind of really interesting architectural details that maybe you couldn't really get away with anywhere but Vegas. So I wanted to focus on, here, these are kind of this interesting sprinkling of masses across the front that I thought was a kind of fun detail. So moving this mass into Revit, which that was actually one of my favorite techniques that I learned in this class, and something that I'm really, really grateful to have learned and plan to use very much in the future, is being able to import masses from projects such as SketchUp and then be able to face those masses with walls and windows and ceilings. So here's the building once I brought it into Revit and kind of put all of these walls on it and whatnot. So let's go to the floor plan. And so the way that a museum patron is going to navigate through this museum, so this is the first floor, they're going to go under the tunnel here, under this kind of sky bridge, through into this central courtyard. And there are two ways to access the main lobby. You can go into this interesting little walkway that seems almost too narrow to be a walkway, which I think is a really intriguing idea. Or this side, but either way you end up in the central lobby, and that's where you buy all of your museum tickets and whatnot. And then right behind this wall is a gift shop, restrooms, mechanical rooms, elevators, etc. Over here is a restaurant, because something that I really wanted to focus on in this arts experience is to not focus specifically so much on this kind of archaic concept of fine art that is paintings and drawings and sculpture and photography, but also kind of expand that idea of what is art, and really focus on culinary art, which I think personally is an art form that I'm really fascinated by and love to experience. So the way that this works, these are both curtain walls right here, and so that museum patrons can look through this curtain wall into the kitchen and see the food being prepared, and then alternately patrons of the restaurant can look through this curtain wall and see all of these beautiful works of art hung on the wall over here. And so customers at this museum can go up the stairs into the second level and circulate the museum that way, or they can start on the first level and walk all the way through around here, up the stairs, back down the stairs, all the way around. Going to the second level, it's a pretty similar shape as far as gallery space goes, kind of sneaking its way around through here, and then over here is a network of offices, you know, curating spaces, etc. that we have over here. So going back to the 3D view of this building, the form itself was very much, as I mentioned, heavily modeled in SketchUp and then brought over into Revit. One of the challenges that I really faced with this project was by placing these ribbon windows here. I wanted to put those there because in galleries and art museums, it's really hard to implement daylighting because you don't want direct sunlight to damage the works of art. So I wanted to put these windows way up high so that the gallery spaces could get a lot of natural light but didn't have to worry about damaging the actual art. So I implemented these ribbon windows and then later found out that putting ribbon windows at the top 4 feet of each floor is a terrible idea because it's in those top, you know, couple feet that is where all of the structural and mechanical and plumbing systems exist. So bad design decision on my part, but I learned a lot from that experience. Another challenge that I faced in this project was dealing with the immense requirements for the HVAC system because Las Vegas is, you know, such an extreme climate where it gets so hot in the summer and so cold in the winter, and you know, the ventilation to accommodate those crazy fluctuations in temperature, especially with, you know, all of these giant curtain walls, was just so robust. It was a system 4 times as large as I could have even expected. So modeling that was quite a challenge, but you know, allowed me to gain a lot of respect for designers in such extreme climates. Some of the strengths that I found in this project were the way that I was able to expand my modeling techniques in Revit, I think, first and foremost. I learned a ton of stuff about how to model in Revit, and, you know, being an artist, my favorite thing about Revit is being able to make beautiful renderings of the things that I've created. So some of my favorite ones that I was able to create, here you can see this courtyard going into the central lobby, that shiny blue wall that I love there. I just thought it was so much fun to be able to play with all of these custom details like the glossiness of materials and different faces and lighting and whatnot. You can see that I kind of messed around with these different materials. Here's some copper on the exterior. Here's some lighting, and that's another thing that I really love to experiment with in my design is the way that lighting affects the space. And that was something that I really, really enjoyed about this project because, you know, here as you can see this kind of dramatic uplighting with this effect on this shiny wall over here, which I just love. And then with it being kind of late in the evening, we can see that the sun is low in the sky, creating this kind of pinkish glow on all of the buildings. And that's why I ended up opting for this silver polished aluminum siding as opposed to this copper, because the copper actually gave the museum kind of a like a color theme, whereas by having basically the silvery white siding, the museum could create colors for itself and really focus on the art and allow the way that people interact with the space and the lighting in the space to kind of define the feel of the space itself, which was something I really enjoyed. as I said, I think a success that I encountered. Whoops, that was not what I was supposed to do. One of my greatest successes was in experimenting with all of these different renderings. Out of all of the lessons that I learned, I think the one that I can draw from the most, and I think that will benefit me the most in my future career, is just really how much I appreciate all of the inner workings of a building. You know, especially with this being in Las Vegas. I've been to Las Vegas probably 15 times, and there's really cool architecture there, but I have never once even thought about the mechanical systems. It's like, oh, this is a giant building that has a ton of air conditioning, and that's all the thought that I gave to it. You know, you don't see these mechanical systems, you don't see the structural systems, you know they're there, but you just don't see them. And this class really just opened my eyes to all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes, which has been really awesome because it's taken such a holistic approach to the entire design process of a building, and has really shown me that good design in a building allows for the building to hide all of its mechanical and structural and plumbing systems, you know, because in a lot of these kind of larger scale buildings, those are huge parts of the way that the building operates, but good design is able to hide that from the average user of the building. So that's been a really awesome and important lesson that I've learned through this class. So thank you so much for the opportunity.